He hit the ground hard, shoulder first, rolling twice before slamming against the thick, veined trunk of an alien tree. Bioluminescent spores scattered from the bark like blue fireflies. Pain bloomed in his ribs, his left leg screamed from the earlier plasma graze, and blood slicked the inside of his collar. But Jace Keller didn't stop moving. He pushed himself up, shoved a small vine out of his face, and took cover behind the trunk. The HUD in his visor flickered, damaged, flashing static and ghost images of friendly units that weren't there anymore. The jungle was suffocating, dense foliage wrapped in mist, chirping with insectoid things that clicked instead of buzzed. He toggled his comm, Keller to Nomad Base. Extraction team wiped. All SEALs Kia. I'm last man. No reply. Just soft hissing static. Above him, distorted howls echoed through the trees. Inhuman and sharp, warbling like they were made by machines designed to mock living things. He recognized the sound now. Not just predators. Hunters. Galactic ones. And they were closing in. Jace gritted his teeth and crawled forward into the underbrush. The mission had gone to hell fast. What started as recon for a possible enemy staging site turned into a slaughter. A planetary wildlife preserve, they'd been told. That phrase now sat in his skull like a cruel joke. Preserve, sure, but not for protecting animals. No, this moon was where the alien elite hunted the galaxy's deadliest sentients for sport. Humans were just the newest addition to the menu. He didn't know what they looked like exactly. Only quick flashes, tall shadows with digitigrade legs and armor that shimmered like oil in water. Silent until they screamed. He'd seen 4 of his team die in seconds. Not a firefight, not a battle, an execution. Keller slowed his breathing, blinked sweat from his eyes. He was a Navy SEAL. SEALs didn't panic. They adapted, improvised, endured. It was the enemy who panicked. That's how he'd been trained. That's how he'd survived everything Earth ever threw at him. He slid his knife free and adjusted the rifle slung across his back. Ammo was low. Supplies were gone. Only 2 frag grenades, a half-dead comm, and a SEAL's mindset. He'd have to make it enough. Movement up ahead. A blur. Then another to his left. They weren't bothering to hide now. They wanted him to know. To feel the pressure, the inevitability. That's fine, he thought. Let him close in. See how that works out for them. A sharp chime sounded metallic and alien. Then the underbrush erupted with light. He leapt backward as a net of glowing tendrils dropped from the canopy. It crackled with energy, slicing the air where he'd just been. Another snapped shut behind him. He was being herded. Jace turned and ran, through thorn vines that opened like mouths, under low-hanging moss that felt too warm. 10 seconds in, and he hit an open clearing. And there they were. 10 of them. Maybe 12. Dark, glinting armor shaped for both intimidation and function. Some held jagged rifles. Others carried curved plasma blades. Their faces were obscured by helmets that didn't need eyes, just slits, scanning in infrared, ultraviolet, whatever monsters saw with. They fanned out around him, forming a ring. He was surrounded. Jace didn't raise his hands, didn't drop his weapon. He just stood there, breathing slow, head slightly tilted. Blood ran down his temple, stained his chest plate. The tallest alien stepped forward, blade held loose in one hand. The creature spoke in its language, clicks, growls, and synthetic overtones. Then it cocked its head, clearly waiting for something. Fear, maybe. A plea. Or the start of a run. Jace chuckled. Just a breath at first. Then more. A low, rising laugh that came from somewhere deep in his chest. Raspy, raw, genuine. Not the laugh of a man who had lost. No, the laugh of someone who knew something they didn't. The aliens shifted. Slightly. The blade wielder stepped back half a pace. Jace let the sound carry. His laugh wasn't forced. It wasn't bravado. It was memory. He'd seen things worse than these bastards. Men disintegrated by IEDs. Friends turned to red mist in jungle ambushes. And through it all, they laughed. Because that was what scared the enemy more than firepower. That humans could laugh while bleeding. Laugh while dying. You boys think this is your kill box. Jace said softly. Cute. None of them responded. But a faint twitch, one to his left, betrayed confusion. Or nerves. Jace took a step forward, just one. You came to hunt. Should have asked what happens when a seal gets cornered. There was a moment. A hesitation. Not long, but long enough. Then Jace moved. He dropped, rolled left as he yanked the pin on one of his frags and sent it skipping across the moss. It landed perfectly between two hunters, just as they turned. Boom! The clearing lit up with fire and smoke. Screams, not human, split the air. Keller was already moving, knife drawn, ducking under plasma fire, slipping through the confusion. A blade cut through air behind him. He countered with an upward slash, catching one hunter's arm. Black ichor sprayed. Another lunged. Jace ducked and drove the knife upward through the alien's chin, yanking the helmet free in the motion. He saw its eyes, small, glassy, and shocked. 2 down, 10 to go. He didn't expect to survive, but he didn't need to. He just needed to make it cost them. Enough blood, enough fear. He pulled back into the trees, vanishing into the dark, just as more energy nets fell around the blast zone. The hunters regrouped, but not all chased. A few checked their fallen. The leader knelt beside one of the dead, touching the cracked armor. Then he looked at the tree lean. There was nothing, just rustling leaves. Then laughter from the dark, deep and rolling, and coming from everywhere. The leader's blade arm trembled. Jace crouched in the branches above, hand on another grenade. He smiled without mirth. The hunt was on, and this time, the humans were the monsters in the dark. The jungle was bleeding light. Phosphorescent trails marked where plasma bolts had struck the trees, sizzling into the thick, rubbery bark. The canopy overhead flickered with intermittent pulses as the hunters swept their search beams through the upper foliage. Still, they couldn't find him. Not properly. Not long enough. Jace had vanished again. Their mistake had been assuming the kill zone was a cage. But cages don't work when your prey understands them better than the captor. And Jace understood terrain like it was an extension of his body. Every branch, every elevation shift, every sound in the leaves. The jungle didn't hide him. He used it. He crouched in a hollowed-out stump, listening to their boots crunch the moss. His breath was shallow, his hand gripping the last grenade. The knife he'd cleaned quickly against the side of his pants was now wet again. New blood, darker than before, thicker, less human. He peeked through the wood's narrow slits. 4 of them passed, fanning out. Their formation had shifted. Less confidence now. More urgency. They knew he was dangerous, but they still thought of him as an animal, wounded, outnumbered, and soon to be bagged. Jace knew better. Animals run. But men like him, seals, they calculate. He moved again when the last alien passed his position, creeping silently between roots and hanging vines. The jungle was warm, almost feverish, and everything smelled like wet stone and burnt ozone. His leg wound pulsed with each heartbeat, but pain was just another data point. He could compartmentalize it, had done so before. There was a rustle above, leaves shifting where no breeze existed. He froze, slowly raising his eyes. One of them was perched in the canopy, watching from above. Jace didn't blink. He slowly drew his sidearm, a battered but functional M19. Silencer already on. He raised it, breath held. The alien turned slightly, its optics sweeping, too slow. Pop! The suppressed round hit the thing just under the jaw, severing its neural net. It tumbled from the branch and hit the ground hard, convulsing once before lying still. Jace didn't wait. He darted toward the body and stripped its bandolier. His eyes lit up. Miniature plasma charges. Fuse blades. Something like a motion disruptor. He didn't understand their tech, but he understood tools. And war was about tools. Footsteps. He ducked into the undergrowth, just as two more appeared from the east, scanning for their missing comrade. Their posture was different now. Tighter. Jace was already behind them. He moved like shadow. One grabbed a scanner from his side, then jerked as Jace plunged the fused alien blade through its lower back. The second turned. Too late, Jace caught him with a pistol round through the optic lens. The clearing erupted with more screams. Jace didn't stay. He fled again, zigzagging between tree trunks, using their confusion. He needed a better fallback point. Somewhere tighter. Enclosed. Where their superior numbers meant less. A minute later, he found it. Half buried beneath moss and vines was the husk of an ancient dropship, long since wrecked, the metal corroded and split. The human logo on the side was faded, unreadable, possibly from a war long forgotten. He slipped inside through a breach in the hull. It was dark, humid, and smelled like old oil and decay. But it had corridors, bottlenecks, places to control. He knelt by a collapsed support beam and wired the stolen plasma charges to its base. If they tried to follow, he'd bury them. He worked quickly, mind precise, hand steady. He wasn't thinking about survival now. He was thinking about message. These things hunted sentience for sport. But they'd chosen the wrong species this time. He remembered the last look his team had given him, just before the ambush. Peterson laughing. Diaz humming that stupid Earth tune. Malik arguing about space rations. All gone in less than a minute. Jace finished rigging the trap, then climbed to a corner of the wreck where he could wait. He'd check his ammo. 2 full mags. 1 half. And a grenade. He'd make them earn every breath. Minutes passed. Then, the scrape of armored boots on metal. They were cautious now, creeping in formation. 4 of them entered, flickering their shoulder lights across the wreck. They called out to each other in short bursts of language. Jace didn't understand the words, but he knew the tone. Tension. He waited until all 4 were in the kill zone. Then he hit the switch. The charges blew in a concussive burst, dropping a slab of the wreck's ceiling onto 2 of them instantly. The other 2 stumbled back, only to be greeted by gunfire from above. Jace dropped them both with precise, controlled bursts. Then silence. His breath came fast now. His ribs ached from the fall earlier. His hands were shaking slightly, but still he smiled. He had no idea how many were left. Didn't care. Each one he killed chipped at their pride, at their control. From outside, a sound rose. Not a scream, not a howl. A roar, low, guttural, furious. It shook the wreck. Jace's smile faded slightly. That wasn't a patrol unit. That was something bigger. A response. Footsteps. Heavy. Trees cracking. He backed away from the breach and reloaded, eyes locked on the shadows beyond the doorway. Then it emerged, nearly 9 feet tall. Bulkier armor. Cloak of writhing synth fibers. A predator among predators. Jace didn't blink. The thing growled something low and deliberate, then raised a long staff weapon, crackling with arcing electricity. Jace stared at it and laughed again. Finally, he muttered, "They sent someone interesting." And then the real fight began. The first strike came like a thunderclap. Jace hurled himself sideways as the alien champion's staff cracked against the metal floor where his head had been. The impact left a crater, sparks leaping in every direction. The wreck groaned beneath the force. This one was different, faster, more deliberate. Not a hunter on patrol, but a trained executioner. A silencer. He rolled, came up with his pistol raised, and fired twice. The round sparked off the alien's armor. It barely flinched. Then it lunged again, closing the distance in an instant. Jace ducked under a wide swing, slipped behind a support strut, and scrambled to higher ground, climbing the wreck's twisted beams like a jungle cat. The enemy followed without hesitation, fluid and relentless. The air crackled with energy. The staff sizzled with a humming growl, electric arcs dancing along its length. One touch would liquefy bones. Jace's thoughts ran cold and sharp. No panic, no noise, just analysis. The creature was armored in overlapping plates, a reactive polymer by the way it shimmered under light. Vulnerable points: neck, underarms, joints behind the knees. He needed to get close. Too close. He flipped the last grenade in his hand, pulled the pin with his teeth, and tossed it over the edge, not at the champion, but at the floor beneath it. The detonation shattered the metal panel, sending the alien crashing through the wreck's lower deck in a cascade of shrieking steel and smoke. Jace dropped right after it. He landed hard, rolling with the momentum, ribs screaming. The air was dense with dust and ionized plasma residue. He could barely see, but he could feel it moving. There, a flicker. He fired 3 shots toward the shadow and ducked left, circling. A grunt echoed, low and pained. He'd clipped it. From the smoke, the staff lashed out again. This time it grazed his shoulder. Jace felt his skin blister instantly, the nerves flash fried. He bit down on the pain, dropped to a knee, and shoved the plasma disruptor into the alien's side. He didn't know how to activate it, so he mashed every button on the side and prayed. A pulse of blue light erupted. The alien screamed, a ragged, inhuman screech as the device overloaded its shielding. Sparks burst from its armor seams. Jace grabbed his knife, leapt forward, and drove the blade up beneath its jaw. The creature slammed into him, massive and heavy. They crashed into a pile of wreckage, tangled limbs, and raw noise. Silence followed. Jace gasped for breath beneath the weight of the beast. His arm was slick with blood. Its or his, he couldn't tell. Slowly, he shoved it aside and staggered to his feet. The thing twitched once, then stilled. He stood over it, swaying slightly, heart pounding like a war drum. Blood trickled down the side of his face. His vision blurred for a second. He steadied himself. Then he heard them. Not footsteps. Voices. Crackling over an alien comms channel. Distorted but decipherable through the translator embedded in his earpiece. Lost contact with Varnak. Seal is alive. Confirmed. Converge. Dozens of signals. They knew. Jace didn't bother to swear. He just moved, out of the wreck, through the trees. His body burned with every step. Adrenaline could only mask so much. He was losing blood, but he couldn't stop. Not now. He needed higher ground. Visibility. A kill zone. He found it. A craggy rise where ancient tree roots clung to stone. There, half buried beneath earth and leaves, was a long-dead probe station. Human-made, rusted but familiar. Jace pried open its casing. Inside, he found what he needed, a solar-powered distress beacon. He worked quickly, bypassing the standard protocol, locking it to transmit a broad-spectrum burst on Navy encrypted channels. It would burn out after one message, but it would be loud. He recorded fast, short, his voice hoarse but focused. This is Chief Petty Officer Jace Ward. SEAL Team 9. Planetary surface compromised. Alien hostiles. Hunting sentient prey for sport. Coordinates attached. Requesting extraction or retaliation strike. I am not surrendering. He hit transmit. The beacon flared once, then died. Now he just had to hold long enough for it to matter. The forest below stirred. Dozens of them, moving with precision now. No more mistakes. They'd stopped underestimating him. That made them even more dangerous. But it also meant something else. They respected the threat. Jace checked his weapons. He was down to his last mag, 3 rounds and a half mag, and the knife. He holstered the pistol and picked up the alien staff from where it had fallen. It was heavy, too large for comfort, but lethal. He'd never used a weapon like it. Didn't matter. He'd learn. They came at dusk. Not stealthy now, coordinated. A proper assault. They surrounded the ridge, waiting. Then they rushed. Jace met them with fury. He wielded the staff like a butcher's tool, hacking through the first wave with brutal swings. The energy surges blasted 2 clean off the edge of the cliff. A third tried to flank. Jace dropped it with a pistol shot to the gut. They kept coming. He moved like a storm, dodging, striking, falling back, then lunging forward. The staff hissed in his grip, its energy draining fast. One blast blew apart a tree and lit the sky with fire. Jace pivoted, ducked under a blow, stabbed upward. Another down. Another. Still more. It was a blur of motion, blood, and howling rage. The staff finally gave out, crackling one last time before its power cell ruptured. Jace tossed it aside and drew his knife again. His body was failing. He knew it. His breaths were ragged, muscles trembling. But he wouldn't stop. Couldn't. They wanted him broken, wanted him cornered and begging. Instead, he stood over a pile of their dead and laughed. A long, echoing human laugh. It rang through the clearing like thunder. It didn't mock. It didn't plead. It defied. And for the first time, the hunters hesitated. They had circled death before, played with it, toyed with weak species. But now they looked into the eyes of something that didn't fear them, something that embraced war like a second skin. Jace spat blood to the dirt, raised his knife again, and beckoned. "Come on," he rasped. "I've got enough left for all of you." And as the stars bled through the trees above, they closed in again, slower this time, measured, like predators unsure if their prey had just grown fangs. The ridge was slick with blood and smoke when the second wave came. Jace could no longer feel his right arm, the nerves deadened from burns and impact trauma. His left leg dragged slightly behind him, punctured by a splinter of alien shrapnel. Every breath grated against a cracked rib. He welcomed the pain. It meant he was still alive. Below, the hunters regrouped. Their formation had changed. No longer reckless. They moved in silence now, like a hive with purpose. The lead warrior, taller, crowned in segmented black armor streaked with red, raised a curved signal blade. Around him, cloaked figures shifted in and out of visibility, warping the light. Advanced camouflage. Elite units. Jace crouched behind the ruined tree at the cliff's edge, fingers trembling as he loaded the last 3 rounds into his sidearm. His hand smeared blood across the grip. He didn't bother wiping it off. He bought time. Minutes maybe. The beacon had gone out nearly 30 minutes ago. If anyone had heard it, they were still too far away to matter. He was going to die here. That was a certainty now, but that didn't mean they would win. From the ridge's apex, he could see the alien bodies he'd left strewn like discarded armor pieces, spines snapped, faces charred, limbs missing. They hadn't expected a fight. They hadn't expected a man to fight like this. The air shimmered. He turned, just in time to dodge the energy blade slicing through the tree. The trunk exploded, bark splintering outward in a deafening crack. A cloaked hunter emerged, its mask gleaming with a mirrored sheen. Jace drove his elbow up into its jaw, rolled over its back, and drove his blade down, snapping the cloak's field and spilling alien blood across the rocks. Another one emerged. Then 2 more. Jace dropped into a crouch and fired 2 shots. Both hit. One dropped. The other staggered. Then the pistol clicked empty. He threw at the third's face and charged. The knife found flesh again. He twisted, wrenching the weapon free as the creature gurgled, its innards spilling out. The last one tackled him. They fell, tumbling down the embankment. Rocks toward his back. The alien struck again and again with a gauntlet fist. Jace's world went white, then black, then white again. But he didn't stop. He grabbed a chunk of stone and drove it into the creature's eye with everything he had. Once, twice, until the twitching stopped. He staggered upright, chest heaving, blood blurring his vision. And then they were all around him. Not 20, not 30, more than 50 in full armor, their weapons raised. Some bore spears that crackled with plasma. Others held blasters the size of Jace's torso. Behind them, the lead figure stepped forward, the one with the signal blade. It spoke in a deep, resonant tongue. The translator whispered in Jace's ear, "You have killed 37 of our kin." Jace wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Could have been 40 if I hadn't run out of bullets." The alien paused. "You were supposed to run, to scream. The other species do. Guess we're wired wrong," Jace said, grinning through bloody teeth. "You came looking for prey, but you found a predator." The lead hunter looked down at him. "You are broken. Your species is primitive. You wield crude weapons. Why do you fight?" Jace took a slow step forward. "Because you hunted us for sport. Because you laughed when you killed the survey team. Because you don't understand what happens when you corner a human." He laughed then, a hollow, echoing rasp. "We bite." The hunters did not move. And then something changed. The sky cracked. A sonic boom shattered the clouds as 3 drop pods screamed through the atmosphere. They hit the forest like meteors shattering trees, sending dirt and debris flying. From the smoke emerged shadows, heavily armored, moving with purpose. Human exomarines. Jace blinked, dizzy. The lead hunter turned its head. "No." Jace chuckled. "Yeah." The Marines opened fire. A hailstorm of kinetic rounds and plasma tore into the hunters. Explosions lit the jungle. The air filled with screams, some alien, some human. The ridge became a war zone. Jace dropped to his knees, finally letting go. A figure approached him through the chaos. Helmeted, tall, a Navy medical cross painted on his chest plate. The man dropped beside him, began scanning his vitals. "Jesus, Chief, we thought you were dead." Jace coughed. "Almost was. Glad you're fashionably late. Beacon got through just before it burned out. We were 2 hours out. Fast dropped as soon as we had coordinates." Jace nodded weakly, looking out over the battlefield. The hunters were dying, one by one, not because of overwhelming firepower, not because they were outnumbered, but because their advantage, fear, was gone. They thought humans were animals. Easy kills. But they'd found a seal with nothing left to lose. They had surrounded him, cornered him, and he had laughed. Because they were the ones truly doomed the moment they thought war was a game humans didn't understand. As the medic lifted him into the evac harness, Jace looked down at the lead hunter's corpse, riddled with bullets, blade shattered in its hand. "Next time," he whispered, "pick someone else's planet." Then the dropship lifted off, fire and ruin shrinking beneath them, and the stars opened above. The hunters had come seeking trophies. Instead, they found a legend,